The dropship shuddered as it entered the atmosphere of Novus Prime, flames licking its heat shields. Inside, Captain Liam Hawkins gripped the harness straps tightly, his eyes fixed on the viewport. Beside him, Sergeant Marcus Drake, his right-hand man, flashed a grin. "Another day, another planet, eh, Captain?" Liam nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. "Let's hope this one sticks." The ship landed with a jolt, and the ramp hissed open. Liam unbuckled his harness and stood, addressing his team. "All right, men, you know the drill. Secure the perimeter and start unloading supplies. Dr. Reeves, you're with me." As the soldiers filed out, Liam approached the scientist. "Ethan, what's the status of the colony?" Dr. Ethan Reeves, a thin man with a perpetual frown, glanced up from his datapad. "The main HAB units are operational, but we're still struggling with the atmospheric processors. The air here is breathable, but barely." Liam clapped him on the shoulder. "We'll make it work. We always do." Outside, the soldiers fanned out across the rocky terrain, their weapons at the ready. The sky was a deep purple, with 2 moons hanging low on the horizon. In the distance, towering spires of rock rose like jagged teeth. Caleb Novak, the youngest of the group, let out a low whistle. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Isaac Sterling, the engineer, chuckled. "Sure, if you like desolate wastelands." As they worked, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He scanned the horizon, his hand resting on his sidearm. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye. "Drake, 2 o'clock, he shouted. The sergeant spun, raising his rifle, but it was too late. A searing beam of energy lanced out from the rocks, striking him in the chest. He crumpled to the ground, his armor smoking. "Ambush!" Liam yelled, diving for cover. The air erupted with the sound of weapons fire as the soldiers returned fire. Liam crawled to Drake's side, dragging him behind a boulder. "Marcus, stay with me," he pleaded, but the sergeant's eyes were already glazing over. "It's been an honor, sir," Drake whispered, his breath rattling in his chest. Liam gripped his hand tightly, tears stinging his eyes. "The honor was mine, my friend." As Drake's hand went limp, Liam felt a surge of rage. He stood, unholstering his sidearm, and charged into the fray. "Reeves, get back to the ship," he barked into his comm. "Novak, Sterling, cover him." The 2 soldiers laid down suppressive fire as Reeves sprinted for the dropship, clutching his datapad to his chest. Liam stood his ground, firing shot after shot into the rocks. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, slender being with iridescent skin and eyes that glowed like molten gold. It raised a long, angular weapon, pointing it directly at Liam. "Surrender," it hissed, its voice like the rustle of dry leaves. Liam snarled, his finger tightening on the trigger. Not a chance. The being fired, a searing bolt of energy that slammed into Liam's shoulder, spinning him around. He fell to one knee, his vision swimming. "Captain!" Novak shouted, rushing to his side. Liam waved him off, struggling to his feet. "Get back to the ship," he growled. As Novak hesitated, another volley of energy beams sliced through the air, forcing them back. Liam stumbled, his wounded arm hanging uselessly at his side. "Go!" he shouted, his voice cracking. Novak and Sterling retreated, laying down covering fire as they went. Liam limped after them, his breath coming in ragged gasps. They reached the dropship just as another wave of energy beams seared the air around them. Reeves was already inside, his face pale. "What the hell was that?" he demanded as they stumbled up the ramp. Liam slumped against the wall, his vision blurring. "I don't know," he admitted, "but we're not safe here." As the dropship lifted off, Liam could see the rocky landscape below, dotted with the bodies of his fallen comrades. He closed his eyes, his heart heavy with grief and rage. They had come to Novus Prime seeking a new home, a fresh start for humanity. But instead, they had found only death and an enemy they couldn't begin to understand. As the dropship streaked towards the stars, Liam made a silent vow. He would find out who these beings were and why they had attacked, and he would make them pay for what they had done, no matter the cost. Chapter 2. The Enemy Revealed. The dropship shuddered as it docked with the orbiting colony ship, the airlock hissing open to reveal a grim-faced medical team. They rushed forward, pulling Captain Liam Hawkins onto a stretcher. "Get him to the medbay now!" Dr. Ethan Reeves barked, his face tight with worry. As the medics whisked Liam away, Reeves turned to the rest of the team. "Novak, Sterling, I need you to secure that alien weapon. We need to know what we're up against." Caleb Novak nodded, his jaw clenched. "On it, Doc." In the medbay, Liam drifted in and out of consciousness, his mind replaying the ambush on the planet's surface. The image of Sergeant Drake's lifeless body seemed seared into his retinas. A hand on his shoulder startled him awake. It was Isaac Sterling, his face lined with exhaustion. "Captain, we've got a problem." Liam struggled to sit up, wincing at the pain in his shoulder. "What is it?" "That weapon the aliens used? It's like nothing we've ever seen. Reeves says it's powered by some kind of exotic energy source." Liam frowned. "What does that mean for us?" Sterling shook his head. "It means we're outgunned, sir, by a long shot." Liam sighed, his mind racing. "Gather the team. We need to figure out our next move." An hour later, they were assembled in the ship's briefing room. Reeves stood at the front, his hands clasped behind his back. "Based on my analysis of the alien weapon, I believe we're dealing with a highly advanced civilization. Their technology is centuries beyond our own." Novak leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "So how do we fight them?" Reeves hesitated. "I'm not sure we can. At least, not directly." Liam stood, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" Reeves tapped a few keys on his datapad, bringing up a holographic display of the planet's surface. "I've detected an unusual energy signature coming from these coordinates. I believe it may be the source of the aliens' power." Liam studied the map, his eyes narrowing. "It looks like some kind of mine." Reeves nodded. "Exactly. If we can infiltrate the mine and destroy the energy source, it could level the playing field." Sterling frowned. "That's a big if, Doc. We don't even know what we're up against." Liam turned to face his team. "No, we don't. But we do know that if we don't act, more people will die. We have to try." Novak stood, his face set with determination. "I'm in, Captain. Whatever it takes." Sterling nodded, his expression grim. "Me too." Reeves cleared his throat. "There's one more thing. Based on the mine's depth and the energy readings, it's likely that any explosives we use will have to be detonated manually." A heavy silence fell over the room. Liam felt a cold weight settle in his gut. "You're saying someone will have to stay behind?" Reeves nodded, his eyes downcast. "I'm afraid so." Novak slammed his fist on the table. "No way. We've already lost too many people." Sterling put a hand on his shoulder. Easy, kid. We all knew the risks when we signed up for this mission. Liam took a deep breath, his mind whirling. Reeves, how long will it take to prep the explosives? A few hours, at least. Get started. The rest of you, gear up and get some rest. We move out at 0600. As the team filed out of the room, Liam sank back into his chair, his head in his hands. He knew what he had to do, but the thought of leaving his people behind tore at his heart. He thought of Sergeant Drake, of the sacrifice he had made for the mission. Liam knew he would do the same in a heartbeat. But as he sat there, staring at the holographic map of the mine, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was a one-way trip, one that would require the ultimate sacrifice. Chapter 3. The Weight of Sacrifice. The weight of the impending sacrifice hung heavy in the air as the team gathered in the armory. Each member busied themselves with checking their weapons and gear, but their minds were elsewhere, grappling with the grim reality of their mission. Caleb Novak sat on a bench, staring at the floor. "I can't believe we're even considering this," he muttered. "There has to be another way." Isaac Sterling looked up from his rifle, his eyes hard. "You heard the doc, kid. This is our only shot." Captain Liam Hawkins listened to the exchange, his own thoughts a whirlwind of emotions. He knew what he had to do, but the thought of leaving his team behind tore at his very soul. Novak stood abruptly, his face flushed. "Then I'll do it. I'm the youngest. I've got the least to lose." Sterling scoffed. "Don't be an idiot, Novak. You've got your whole life ahead of you. And what about you, huh? You've got a family back home. They need you." Liam stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Enough. This isn't a decision to be made lightly." Dr. Ethan Reeves entered the room, his face somber. "Captain, a word?" Liam followed him out into the hallway, his heart heavy. "What is it, Ethan?" Reeves hesitated, his eyes searching Liam's face. "I know what you're thinking, Liam, but you can't be the one to stay behind." Liam sighed, leaning against the wall. "I'm the captain, Ethan. It's my responsibility." "No, it's your responsibility to lead this team, to get them home safely." Liam shook his head. "And how can I do that if I'm not willing to make the same sacrifices I ask of them?" Reeves placed a hand on his shoulder. "Liam, listen to me. You're the heart of this team. Without you, they'll fall apart." Liam closed his eyes, the weight of the decision crushing him. "I can't ask anyone else to do this, Ethan. I won't." Reeves sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I understand, but please think about what you're doing." Liam nodded, his jaw clenched. "I have, and I've made my decision." He turned and walked back into the armory, his eyes scanning the faces of his team. "Listen up," he said, his voice ringing with authority. "I know what we're asking is no small thing, but this is our only chance to stop the Venlari and save countless lives." Novak stepped forward, his face set with determination. "Captain, I meant what I said. I'll do it." Sterling shook his head. "No, I will. I've got the most experience with explosives." Liam held up a hand, silencing them. "No, this is my mission, my responsibility. I'll be the one to stay behind." A shocked silence fell over the room. Novak's face crumpled, tears welling in his eyes. "Captain, No, you can't. Liam placed a hand on his shoulder, his own eyes glistening. I have to, Caleb. This is the only way. Sterling stepped forward, his face a mask of grief. Liam, are you sure about this? Liam nodded, his resolve unwavering. I am. You'll need to lead the team in my absence, Isaac. I'm counting on you. Sterling swallowed hard, his eyes downcast. I won't let you down, sir. Liam turned to Reeves, his voice softening. Ethan, I need you to promise me something. If I don't make it back... Reeves shook his head, his face twisting with emotion. Don't say that, Liam. You'll make it back. You have to. Liam smiled sadly. If I don't, I need you to tell my wife and son that I love them, and that I did this for them, for all of us. Reeves nodded, his eyes shining with tears. I will. I promise. Liam turned back to his team, his heart swelling with pride and sorrow. I couldn't ask for a better crew. It's been an honor serving with each and every one of you. As they gathered their gear and prepared for the mission, each member of the team grappled with their own emotions. They knew the stakes, knew the price that would be paid. But as they looked to their captain, to the man who had led them through hell and back, they knew they would follow him to the very end. Chapter 4. Into the Mines. The dropship hurtled through the atmosphere, its engines straining as it descended towards the mine's coordinates. Inside, Captain Liam Hawkins and his team sat in tense silence, each lost in their own thoughts. As the ship touched down, Liam stood, his face set with grim determination. All right, listen up. We've got one shot at this. Novak, Sterling, you're with me. We'll take point and clear a path to the energy source. Reeves, you stay with the ship and monitor our progress. The team nodded, their expressions a mix of fear and resolve. They knew what was at stake, knew the price they might pay. As they exited the ship, the rocky terrain of the mine stretched out before them, a labyrinth of twisting tunnels and jagged outcroppings. Liam took a deep breath, his rifle held at the ready. Let's move. They pushed forward, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. Suddenly, a burst of energy seared the rock beside Novak's head. Contact left, he yelled, diving for cover. The team scattered as more energy beams rained down on them, the Venlari emerging from the shadows like wraiths. Liam returned fire, his aim steady and true. Push forward, he shouted over the din of battle. We've got to reach that energy source. They fought their way deeper into the mine, the Venlari's resistance growing more fierce with every step. Novak cried out as a beam grazed his arm, the smell of burnt flesh filling the air. Sterling pulled him behind a boulder, his face tight with worry. You all right, kid? Novak gritted his teeth, nodding. I'm fine. We have to keep moving. Liam led the charge, his rifle spitting fire as he cut down Venlari after Venlari. His mind raced with the knowledge of what lay ahead, of the sacrifice he would make. But he pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the mission at hand. They had to succeed, no matter the cost. As they rounded a corner, they found themselves in a massive cavern, a pulsing, glowing orb, suspended in its center. Liam's eyes widened. That's it, the energy source. But before they could take a step, a horde of Venlari poured into the cavern, their weapons blazing. Liam and his team took cover, returning fire with everything they had. There's too many of them, Novak shouted, his face slick with sweat and blood. Liam gritted his teeth, his mind racing. "Sterling, Novak, lay down suppressing fire. I'll flank them and plant the explosives." Sterling shook his head. "No way, Captain. We're not leaving you." Liam grabbed his shoulder, his eyes intense. "This is the only way. You have to get out of here. Warn the others." Sterling hesitated for a moment, then nodded, his jaw clenched. "Aye, sir." Liam turned to Novak, the young man's face a mask of anguish. "Caleb, you've been a damn fine soldier. I'm proud to have served with you." Novak swallowed hard, tears welling in his eyes. "Captain, Liam silenced him with a look. "Get out of here, Novak. That's an order." With a final nod, Liam broke from cover, sprinting towards the energy source. The Venlari turned their fire on him, energy beams sizzling past his head. But Liam was a man possessed, his focus unwavering. He reached the orb, planting the explosives with steady hands. As he turned to retreat, a searing pain erupted in his side. He stumbled, his vision blurring. Novak appeared at his side, dragging him back towards cover. "Captain, come on, we have to go." Liam shook his head, his breathing labored. "No, Caleb. This is where I make my stand." Novak's face crumpled, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Sir, please, don't do this." Liam smiled, his hand gripping Novak's arm. "It's all right, son. This is my choice." He pushed Novak away, towards the tunnel. "Go! Get the others to safety." As Novak and Sterling retreated, Liam turned back to the energy source, his finger hovering over the detonator. The Venlari closed in, their weapons trained on him. But Liam felt no fear, only a sense of peace. He knew his sacrifice would save countless lives, would give his team a fighting chance. As the explosives beeped their final countdown, Liam closed his eyes, a smile on his lips. "See you on the other side, Marcus." The world erupted in a blaze of light and fire, and Captain Liam Hawkins knew no more. Chapter 5. Bittersweet Victory. The explosion rocked the mine, sending shockwaves rippling through the tunnels. Caleb Novak and Isaac Sterling stumbled, their ears ringing from the deafening blast. As the dust settled, an eerie silence descended. The pulsing glow of the energy source was gone, replaced by a gaping crater. Novak stared at the destruction, his heart heavy with grief. He did it. The captain actually did it. Sterling placed a hand on his shoulder, his own eyes glistening with unshed tears. "He saved us all. We can't let his sacrifice be in vain." They made their way back to the dropship, their steps heavy with the weight of their loss. Dr. Ethan Reeves greeted them, his face etched with worry. "Where's Liam?" he asked, his voice trembling. Novak shook his head, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. Sterling stepped forward, his voice steady despite the pain in his eyes. "He didn't make it, Doc. He stayed behind to detonate the explosives." Reeves staggered back, his face crumpling with grief. No, he can't be gone." As the news spread throughout the colony ship, a pall of sorrow descended. The crew gathered in the mess hall, their faces somber and drawn. Novak stood before them, his eyes red-rimmed but determined. "Captain Hawkins gave his life to save us all. We won't let his sacrifice be forgotten." As the others nodded in agreement, Reeves entered the room, his face pale. "There's something you all need to see." He led them to the lab, where a strange device lay on the table. It pulsed with an eerie green light, its surface etched with intricate designs. "What is it?" Sterling asked, his brow furrowed. "It's a Venlari communication device," Reeves explained. "I found it in the wreckage of the mine." He tapped a few buttons, and a holographic image sprang to life. It showed a sprawling city, its towering spires gleaming in the sun. But as they watched, the image shifted, revealing a planet in chaos. Fires raged across the surface, and ships streaked away into the sky, fleeing some unseen horror. A voice spoke, its words translated by the device. "Our world is dying. The energy source was our last hope. Without it, our people will perish." Novak stared at the image, his mind reeling. They weren't invading. They were trying to survive. Sterling shook his head, his face conflicted. "But they killed our people. They started this war." Reeves sighed, his shoulders slumping. They were desperate. Desperate people do terrible things. As the crew grappled with this revelation, Novak stood tall, his voice ringing with conviction. "We have to end this. We have to find a way to make peace." Sterling scoffed, his anger still raw. "Peace, after everything they've done?" Novak met his gaze, unflinching. "It's what the captain would have wanted. He gave his life so we could have a future without war." As the others murmured in agreement, Reeves stepped forward, his face set with determination. "Novak is right. We have to try." In the days that followed, the crew worked tirelessly to establish communication with the Venlari. It was a long and arduous process, filled with mistrust and misunderstanding. But slowly, tentatively, a dialogue began. The Venlari spoke of their dying world, of the desperation that had driven them to such lengths, and the humans spoke of their own losses, of the brave captain who had given his life for peace. In the end, an agreement was reached. The humans would share their technology, helping the Venlari to find a new home. And in return, the Venlari would share their knowledge, their advanced science and medicine. It was a fragile peace, born of shared pain and mutual understanding. But it was a start. As the crew gathered to honor Captain Liam Hawkins, they knew that his legacy would live on. Not just in the lives he had saved, but in the future he had made possible. A future of hope, of unity, of peace. And as they raised their glasses in a final toast, they knew that somewhere, somehow, their captain was smiling down on them,